as a single mom, the thing that I find comfort in is as long as a child has one consistent parent who shows up and loves them, their chances are better. Is it great to have two parents in the traditional path? Absolutely. The statistics definitely show the favor of that. However, how many moms even have that option today?
Right.
So we have to find hope in the things that we have control of and that we can do. And also just to talk about it like we are here and let other moms feel like they're not the oddball out with what they're facing. There's so many of us who are divorced today with kids. So many. It's
I am the youngest of six.
ah,
So I didn't do any mothering, but I always also knew that I wanted to be a mom, and I had ideas of what that would look like. And boy, oh boy, did I stray from those. Like, no one preps you. Again, going back to like we have so much accessibility, yet because of the highlight reels and the things that you're filled with media wise and concept wise, you think it's going to be a certain way, and no one really talks about how it really is. And how it really is a moment to moment struggle of decision making. I make decisions all day long, and I don't know if I'm still questioning if the last one I made was the right one. And, now I have to make another one already. So
yeah.
instead, it's just, there's no right, there's no wrong. Of course, there's things that you can do that can be harmful. But aside from that, like you're going with your intuitive, gut on like what feels good for this second right now in this moment. Right. And so I try to come from a place of heart like that, but it doesn't set us up well that we live in a culture that, I mean, gosh, if you knew, like we would hit Jack in the Box at 8:30 p.m. last night, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I could have made him something from scratch. Why didn't I need to convince this kid to have more vegetables, and he's ordering me around, I want a strawberry shake. What has my life come to, and so I'm still learning. I'm still figuring it out. I'm still weighing out, where my morals are and where my momhood lies and what's really important, and it's hard because it's different for everyone.
Yeah. And I will say mine's definitely evolved over time. I'm a birth mom, I'm a divorced mom, and then I'm an abandoned pregnant mom. I just need to be a foster mom and an adoptive mom, and then I'll or a surrogate mom, and like I've done them all. No, I'm not going to do that, but I'm just saying, like, I've brought all those.
Have all the titles
because I've seen all of these different views. I never thought I would know, and I would say as a birth mom, what I learned was sacrifice at its hardest level. It is unnatural to be separated from your child, and it wasn't a traditional adoption at all. I had been married, I divorced. I had no way to provide for myself. So I did adoption when my child was 9 months old through my church. And it wasn't the fairy tale story that you hear. And there wasn't a lot of support after the fact. And it really screwed up my mental health. But it also, when I became a mom again, made me extremely intentional with the time that I have with my kids, because I felt like I lost a lot there with that first round of being a mom. And so when I was married, I was like the helicopter mom. I was all organic. We didn't use the microwave. We didn't do all these things for 9 years of our marriage. And then our marriage dissolved. And then I faced being a single mom. Holy cow, that transition from being married to single is something more women need help with, because it's an easy time to be very vulnerable and taken advantage of. And that's something huge with my coaching and with what I share, and why what I share here is that it's a time to really own your motherhood. And you can navigate that well. You can if you want to, but it does take a lot of intention and some time to step back. And then being in a relationship that didn't work out, leading to a COVID pregnancy of all things, that we can talk about a little bit. Like my moment was when lockdown happened, and I looked at my pregnant belly, and I've been this good Christian girl. I got divorced thinking I'm going to meet somebody else. I'm going to meet the right person this time. And here I am doing this alone, and the world's just shut down. How in the world did I get here? Kind of thing. But in that moment, it let me do that exploration of who I really was. What were my core values going to be moving forward? And it gave me this new courage to really face myself, maybe for the first time, and really be honest with myself that I had created this. Maybe it's not what I meant, and I would make different choices if I had known what they were going to lead to. But at the time, I thought it was getting me the relationship that I wanted. And that revealed narcissism in my life and the patterns that had developed. It helped me realize I was a fawner and that I had survived by fawning most of my life. And then when I could put words on that, I could finally do something about it. But in all of that, I always come back to who could I be as a mother? Who could I show up at this moment? Who do I want to be now? What do I want to do with this? I never, ever, ever for 1 minute wanted to be the victim, which is why this podcast kind of came to be, is there were groups of women who were happy to vent and play the victim. And I just could not bring myself to do that. And also just to honor that I was given these children for a reason. God trusted me with them. And then if he trusted me, I must be able and capable to find a way and to make this work. And so that's kind of been my unexpected journey with motherhood. And then COVID, holy cow. Like, I think I got lucky being in Idaho, because you were sharing in California, there were no diapers, there were different things. I wasn't in a big city, and I'm kind of grateful for that. I'm also grateful for my church's resources that had things available, but also I will forever be grateful to the Hope and Pregnancy Center in the town that I was in, because what they did is gave me space with no judgment, and then rewarded me for showing up and gave me the things that I needed to prepare properly for my child and to celebrate them. Because, you know, my son didn't ask to be here, really. And I chose to bring him into this world. So how did I want to celebrate that? How did I want to honor that? And I think some people question that because the dad's not in the picture. He's not his dad. I have no, this is an individual given to me, and he'll decide who he wants to be. I'm not putting that on him. And I think that maybe that's how I'm different than other people too, is I recognize that each of my kids, even though I have 4 kids, 3 different fathers, 3 different situations that they came to me in, that they're still a blessing, and they all have their own individual path, and that maybe they were given that struggle for a reason, but I'm their mom, I'm their guide, I'm their love through those things. So I'm just curious about your motherhood and like the fact that we share the 2020 experience. I haven't got to talk to another mom about that. And I have to believe there are a lot more moms out there that maybe have closed that off and don't talk about it. But I think there's a lot of us that had a lot more in common during that time than we maybe had different. And maybe it could help someone heal and bring some peace to their experience and their motherhood and what it looks like now.
Yeah, absolutely. And a parallel to like your story too, is that my mom had, she got pregnant in high school and gave up her baby. And I've always wanted to connect like on a level of like, what was that like? Because she was like, she had mono, right? Like that was the story. And they sent her to like the Salvation Army in a whole different state. She was from Maryland. They sent her like Pennsylvania, and she was to like birth this child and then give it up. And her perception of it is so different. There's such a cultural and generational change of like, I don't even know if it was really comfortable to even talk to her, daughter about her situation when she was, in high school. My mom was born in 1950 for context. And so, this would be like 1967 or so that this happened. They actually reconnected when I was a senior in high school. And so I had reconnected with this long lost brother, she with a son, and we became like this newfound family. And so the whole story was very, very non-traditional. Things were different about sealing records and stuff like that, about who your biological mom was in the 60s versus what it is now. But even to access, like, I would be curious about, I'm going to make her listen to this, about like what you said about that connection and how unnatural it is, because her perception is like, she felt like I only got like a version of that. And so I think that even like talking about this today, I could see her resiliency then about how she was in this time and she built resiliency. And then I see how resiliency in itself has changed because we're talking about it differently than so it's like the trait is still there, and the way that we are as women, strong women is still there. It's just developed in nature about how we process and are able to, have the situations and share that knowledge.
Well, and science is doing huge differences in the shift of what they're studying too. They show that no, even if the adoption is planned, it is the best thing for everyone involved. There is still a trauma piece when the child is separated from the mom, even at birth. And I would say it was much harder having an older child because that was my big thing. I'm going to traumatize this child. I hadn't even finished nursing at the time, around the time I had decided adoption was going to be the way. So I needed to stop nursing. I needed to get on a bottle. I needed to do these things. And there wasn't really help. There was like this applaud for, oh, you're doing the best thing for your child. And then the adoption happens, and then you're supposed to forget and move on with your life. Now, I think that's a little bit easier when you give the child up at birth, I will say. I think it's probably a little easier when you know that's coming and that's the plan. But when that's not the case, it's a lot harder because you've had not only the 9 months in the womb, but you've had that time with the child before, and they've had that with you and that interaction. That's even my son. The father was in the picture for a period of time. I thought we were going to get married. That's not what happened. Haven't shared that on here before, but that's what I thought was happening. So the thing that really shocked me when he was born is every time he saw a man, I mean, he's months old. Every time he heard a man's voice, it was like he was looking for him. He was looking for the voice he had known in the womb of his dad. And it broke me, but it also got me thinking, how early do these things develop, these connections, and how important are they? And I've had experts come on here and just like, we're understanding now, it is so vital for the mom to be fully present and at home with their child. And it's criminal that we give mom 12 weeks and send their kid to childcare. It's criminal what it does to the child. It's not mentally healthy. It doesn't get resilience. It's detrimental to the family unit and how children are supposed to be raised. But other countries will give mom a year to be home with the kid. And I wish we would move more that direction. And we valued younger education earlier too. I mean, most of my kids with my efforts have been reading since they were like 3. And people are like, how did you do that? Well, I started in the womb. I didn't wait. I was reading in the tummy. I was singing in the tummy. I was connecting. The minute that I knew my child was there, they were a person to me. And so it's interesting to me to hear the different stories of adoption and how some people do get to reunite and they get to build that relationship and other ones don't. And there's all these variations. It's not the cookie cutter way that it was presented back in the day. It's different today. I mean, even with surrogates and stuff now too. And the kind of couples who adopt aren't always traditional now and different things. What is best for a child? Well, as a single mom, the thing that I find comfort in is as long as a child has one consistent parent who shows up and loves them, their chances are better. Is it great to have 2 parents in the traditional path? Absolutely. The statistics definitely show the favor of that. However, how many moms even have that option today? Right. So we have to find hope in the things that we have control of and that we can do. And also just to talk about it like we are here and let other moms feel like they're not the oddball out with what they're facing. There's so many of us who are divorced today with kids. So many. It's unfortunate, really, but we're doing it. And some of us find partners and we have blended families and some of us don't. And I have no idea what my story is going to be at this point. So I just move forward in faith that I'm doing the best that I can for my kids. And that's what I can do. And then they have agency, whether they're going to take my love and my good intentions and they're going to apply them in a good way for their lives or not. That's the other thing I have to kind of be detached from is I could do the best that I can and have a kid completely go off the rails. Or there's kids put in the same situation of abuse and backgrounds and everything, and one excels and the other doesn't. Like it's really at some point up to the child's individual agency as well. And so that has to be honored. And I think that's kind of the odd thing with adoption too. It can very much bless a family and bless a child, but the child didn't have any choice in kind of what happens at that point. And so then it's really on the mom, and the mom could have a lot of guilt and shame around that, or she can find a lot of peace in that. But the thing that I find is if they were supported through it, they do better. I was supported to a point and then kind of left to like, okay, move on with your life. And it was just like, I was a mom. I can't act like I wasn't a mom. I can't act like when I see a family, it doesn't hurt. I can't act like when I see a 9-month-old, it doesn't trigger me. How am I supposed to move forward?
Sure.
But even I think if a woman it'd be interesting to talk to your mom about, does it trigger you when you see a pregnant mom? Does it trigger you when you see a newborn? Or were you able to just get over that? Because I was having a conversation with a sibling of mine. We've had some shared abuse in the past or whatnot. We were talking about it. And one of my siblings, it didn't affect them at all. The abuse didn't affect them. And others of us, it really affected deeply. So it's like, there's there's so many variations. There is no black and white.
There is. And I would think that from what I know of my mom, that she is more like the sibling. I think people, the way that they store, right? Because I'm an EMDR therapist. So like the way that we store some of these files, you're right, there's some misalignment and we get that stuck file that keeps getting hit against the emotionality. And I think that some process it differently. And there's so many factors that go into like the why of that. But I don't think that she's getting triggered by pregnant. I do think that it just got stored and like her rationalization of a justification and mindset was just different in those days. And I don't know if that was upbringing, culture, generational stuff, all of the above. There's probably so many things. But I'd be curious to hear what she feels after hearing this podcast that I will most definitely make her listen to, because that's just my intuitive guess. And then for my experience, Lucas was my first born and 2020. And so I went out to dinner. I was getting close to time. I hadn't hit full term yet. And I was really like struggling physically because, as they say, I was like all baby, right? So this kid was taking up all my room, right? Yes. And so my body was just like, I felt it. I was just more exhausted. But I went out to dinner the night before. I went to like Outback Steakhouse or something, and then the next day I just had a routine check-in, and they're like, no ma'am, you're going to get induced because you're hypertensive.
Oh wow.
So my blood pressure was definitely telling my body it's time to get this thing out of you, get the baby out. So that was the beginning of COVID. No restaurant was open after I was admitted to the hospital. Everything closed down. They had this weird integration here in San Diego. And I think I have so much brain fog around like the trauma, like because of the trauma of being pregnant. Yeah. But like everything was starting to get pillaged at the time, but nothing was closed. And then it was closed. So, right. And so then everyone started to panic. So I was in the hospital for a few days. I was induced. I had that preeclampsia. So they kept me a little bit long, just make sure my blood pressure, everything gets normalized. And then I was allowed to have visitors. So we still had this was like the time they changed all policy, like as I was there. So I was able to have, his father there with me. And then all of a sudden we leave the hospital and it's almost like 28 days later or whatever, like you're like walking around and like everything's so different. And there was so my milk hadn't come in right away, and I really struggled with the breastfeeding. It was, I was not a huge proponent of it. Like it hurt. I couldn't get the milk out. I was just really on the struggle bus. And so they were giving me formula, much their sugar in, because they were not exactly, they were very pro breastfeeding. So I was also getting very shamed for like not being able to like provide for my kid in their sense. And then there was no formula available on Amazon or shelves. Everything was taken. And so like I was freaking out. I was hormonal, post having a baby.
Ugh.
And then the world had all this information about COVID through social media, through other means. And so all these concepts of like, what is actually going on? How long? So all of this, right? And then, it was just a scary time. People were getting isolated, couldn't leave their house. People were not very happy about a crying baby in our apartment building. So all of this, like, I'm sure a lot of people on this, I don't know how many babies were born that week or around the time, but a lot. Yeah, a lot. So
when I go to the store, I know there were a lot of 2020 babies, because when I try to go get sizes for my son, I'll notice that they're gone a lot of the time when it comes to clothes or shoes or different things. It's gotten better, but it's like, yep, there were a lot of 2020 babies. So.
Yeah. And I don't know how many are talking about their experience of how COVID really impacted that, because also bringing a child into the world at a time where we're going through something us personally, we've never been through. And like, what does this mean? Can our babies get sick? We didn't know anything. People were dying, but at that time we didn't know who or why. And so it was just very scary to be a mom. And like, how long? I mean, like, are we still, is COVID still a thing? Like, 2025. I mean, like, we didn't even know how long it's, so it just very terrifying.
I did baby appointments alone. That sucked. I had to accept I would be giving birth with one person. So I brought a midwife, but I didn't get to have my kids there or anybody there. And I assumed the community I was in would, give me some help, but I literally had no one make sure I had a ride to the hospital, a ride home, or someone to watch my kids. So I had to scramble and make something happen. When I had like the fastest labor of my life, it was only 6 hours, like 3. No, it was like 3 hours. Like I expected, you expect labor to be a little longer, so you think you'll have some time or something, but it was like, nope, full on 6 o'clock in the morning. We're go. It's go time. It was so scary. And the midwife didn't get there right away either. So it was just like, I have no one. There's no one. No one's coming. No one. It was like me and God bringing this child into the world with his angels. I swear. It was miraculous, but yet it was so extreme at this.
Yeah.
I guess it would be the way I'd put it. And then I remember from there, I still had to go to the grocery store. I still had to go shopping and get things. So I remember, I have this picture. I've got to find it somewhere. So I was like, okay, well, we'll just have to wear masks. We'll have to cover up and we'll have to go. Like, I have no choice. We're going. And so I remember taking one of the baby carriers with the sun facing in. And then I would use a nursing cover on top of that. So he was fully covered, but he could breathe. And then I had my mask on, and my daughter, if one of them chose to come with me, had their mask on to go to Costco or go to Albertsons or go wherever we were going to get groceries. Like, it was just so weird, and people were weird, and people, it was just weird. And we haven't completely come out of that weird yet either.
No.
But if you had young kids, that also scared off anyone in their 60s and older, like normally who would want to help and who love being around babies and stuff. Like, they didn't want to be anywhere near my house because they were scared they were going to lose their lives over it. But I think a lot of it was misinformation. I mean, I think we still are sorting that stuff out. And so for me, what was interesting was to see who people really were. I think it brought out the best and the worst of people. It brought out the best in those who created. A friend of mine who lives in Minnesota, she would volunteer and go to these places where they'd make a spot for people to come get diapers, to come get baby food. Their church would resource and try to create stations for people to come get what they need. Mm-hmm. So you saw that going on. You saw people reaching out and helping, but then you saw people completely isolating and protecting themselves. And not everyone has shifted back to any kind of real connection. People are really struggling that way because the new definition of safety is different from that experience. We really were able to really pick who do we want to be around us or not. And there's been some beautiful shifts where people are really focused on their family first, and they're going to put their family first. And people had an experience being home with their family. Great, good for you. But like, there are people that instead got completely isolated. who had nobody, like at all,
Right.
and didn't have the resources. And they're still trying to find those resources and people in their circle. Like I have a ton of connections online, but in my circle, it's so much smaller than it used to be. So much smaller than it was before COVID and stuff. And it shocks me. And I can't believe I'm the only one.
I still don't even know how to, like, do I shake someone's hand? Do I hug them? Do I I still don't know how to interact with people. So it is quite, it's, still learning, still navigating, and we're not alone. I think ultimately, like I said, I'm sure, like you pointed out, there's so many women who have had babies during that time, and I still haven't heard all the experiences that there have been to share. So, I'm glad that there's platforms like this where we can talk about, the trauma that we all went through collectively, whether you had a baby or not. I mean, in general, and how isolating that felt at the time, and all the different experiences that we don't know that people went through, March 2020, and that wasn't a baby, but people had, people were in nursing homes, right? So like, there's just so many experiences of that time that we just happen to have a unique one of the motherhood component, right? But I think it still shares true to like resiliency. And I really feel like women in general just have an innate sense of being resilient, kind of put in a position culturally where we need to be resilient, right? Like how everything now, the patriarchy and everything's set up. So, and going against adversity and stuff. So I think that part of that we probably keep evolving and developing as we are when we're born. But there's obviously a lot of levels that still are integrated as we experience life through life's terms.
Yeah. And embrace our motherhood as it is. It's still ours, and we're still developing it. We're changing it. And we can share these experiences, but we've chosen to learn and grow from them. And we're just sharing so somebody out there doesn't feel like they're alone, like that they can talk about these things, that they can express what they're going through so they know they're not alone. I think that's the biggest thing people are struggling with today in the isolation, is thinking that their struggles are unique to them. There's somebody else somewhere out there that's going through the same struggle, and you could help each other, or you can find someone who's gotten through it. That's why I love biographies. They're my absolute favorite thing to watch or to read, because you realize we all have things we've had to overcome. And there are people in the world that have overcome so many bigger things than we have. And this is just one of the things our generation had to go through. We didn't go through a world war like other generations before. We had this. And there's always going to be something every so often in humanity to help us to grow if we choose to let it help us to grow. But it might mean that we have to do some uncomfortable things. And today it's interesting that it's being vulnerable, that it's being authentic, that it's our mental health, that's our well-being that we're fighting for more than anything. At least in the developed world, we have a lot of convenience and comfort. And you would think we would share that more. But I find that it's people in countries who have less that are more willing to share, who are more willing to give. And it just confuses me. I right now, I am an online grader for a university that I went to. And so we have students from all over the world that I'm grading. And it is so interesting to see their work and their stories. Right now, it's a marketing class, and they can choose different companies that they can present information for. And it's so interesting to see the countries that just struggle to get clean water. They would choose the water company, and they would share in their work the struggle to just get a basic need met. And it really gave me perspective to be grateful for what I have, and that I have no excuse to withhold the blessings that I've been giving and to share them with others. And I think if we could realize that what we're given isn't just for us, it's for those around us, and that the light that we have, the resilience that we have, if we could shine it and we can give it to others, it gives others permission to do the same. And that's the humanity I want to see more of, not the restricting, not the hiding, not the isolating, not the categorizing, not the division, but those things that bring us together, and motherhood is one of them. So thank you for talking on that subject today with me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love all the topics that we've covered. Vulnerability is such a big one, and deciphering, right, between what, like, the discomfort of doing something for your own growth versus doing things for other because you should do them. That's the thing you should do, right? Maybe it's not saying no to the next podcast or whatever. Like, maybe that's really where the boundary comes in, and not doing things just because to do them, but kind of deciphering that internal knowledge and who you are versus that kind of discomfort of codependency, right?
Yeah, that's a really great way of putting it. Thanks for summing up the episode today. If someone wants to find you and they want to work with you and have you help them through their trauma and more pieces beyond what we've discussed today, where can they find you?
Well, so the company that I help women in particular is called Villa Kali Ma, and I can give you that information. So that could be therapeutic. It could be more intensive for those who need it. And then I'm also will give you my website for Red Swan Healing, which is my private practice site. So if someone wants to connect with me, see me outside private practice, we can give them that as well. And then I'm also going to be speaking at some events on the impacts of social media. And we will be touching on the COVID aspect of that as well. But emerging trends and how it affects the addiction field. So I can give those talks at the symposiums that I'll be speaking at as well.
We'll make sure to have links to those things down here somewhere, so look for those. Thank you for your vulnerability and for your authenticity today in our conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's so fun to find someone else who's got a 5-year-old bouncy boy that we're both balancing and taking care of. So
I know. Yes, absolutely. I would love to come back on sometime and tackle another topic. So let me know.
Absolutely. We will definitely do that. Well, thank you, audience, for being here. I hope you gleaned something from this that you can plan to take and apply to your life today. That'll help you be the resilient mother you always wanted to be. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe so we can share this message. We are a worldwide podcast with guests all around the world, and we want to continue to grow this community. You can find us on socials. You could also be a guest. Look for that link below if you'd be interested in being a guest on the podcast. If you know a sponsor or would like to be a sponsor, please reach out to me or Catherine as well.
Sure. We want you all on this journey. We want to hear your stories. We want to share your stories. We want to gain strength from each other because together we're stronger. And to never forget the blessing of being a mother and what we're creating. We're creating the future every single day of our lives. So get on this train with us and let's do this thing, moms.
I believe in you. Believe in yourself. God bless. And we'll see you around. Take care.